Good morning, everybody. My name is Armine, and I'm a local attorney here in Los Angeles. I specialize in trusts and estates, helping individuals and couples create comprehensive estate plans to ensure that their families are taken care of should the unexpected happen. Today's webinar will be exclusively on guardianships, and we're going to be exploring several factors you should consider when you are selecting a guardian. And hopefully I will be answering some questions that you've had in mind and you've kind of explored to yourself. And if you do have questions that I will not be covering, please go ahead and submit them using the chat feature, and I'll do my best to answer them. I've received a few questions ahead of time, which I've kind of incorporated into my presentation, but if you have ones that you realize that I haven't covered, go ahead and submit them. If you have ones that you don't want to ask here, you can always email me, or you can actually give me a call and we can chat about it. So I will have this video recording available after we are done. So once the webinar is done, a video recording will be available. I will email it to those of you that have joined me today, and I will also be posting it on my website. So if you want to reference it in the future or send it to somebody, it'll be on my website under the webinars tab. So look for it there. So let's get started. Let's look at the definition of what a legal guardian is. That way we can get an understanding of what role this person will be playing in the life of your children. So normally the parents of a child have guardianship rights over that child. They're the ones that make all the decisions. When a parent passes, the other parent naturally has the rights. So we're looking at a situation where both parents are gone, they've passed away, and what happens in that scenario, as well as a situation in which there is only one parent that's the guardian of the child, and that person becomes incapacitated. What happens then? Who takes care of the children? So, the legal guardian is somebody who basically will take care of the child and make decisions regarding the education, the personal care, the well-being. It's a very important role that will be played in your child's life up until the age of 18, when your child becomes a legal guardian, at which point, of course, they don't need a guardian anymore. They're off on their own. They're considered adults. Parents often neglect to select a guardian. This is one area that they kind of overlook or avoid checking off their to-do list for some reason. We do everything for our kids. We worry about everything, and we feed them the best foods. We keep them the safest and we keep them healthy, and we basically provide them with the tools that they need to learn and develop, and we're always researching the best for our kids. But what most parents forget is to name an actual guardian for their minor children. So, people think that because they have a small estate or they don't have an estate at all, they don't have assets, that they don't need an estate plan. But, if you have minor children, regardless of how large your estate is, you need an amazing estate plan in place that provides for guardianship provisions for your minor children. That is so important. So that's pretty much a vital component to any family structure with minor children. If you don't select a guardian, what's going to happen is the court system is going to decide for you. So some random judge who's never met you or your children will decide what's best for your child, and that's not what is ideal in any situation. It's a very extremely expensive process. It's public. Anyone can access the records and know what happened during the guardianship petition. And it's very time consuming. It takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight. So you want to make sure everything is set up for your child so that the transition is easy on them, mentally as well as physically and psychologically. So as a parent, the most important thing you can do is make sure that you have this in place. And you have to make sure you have the right person selected. And oftentimes this is the main reason why parents avoid doing a guardianship nomination, is because they don't know who to appoint. So you have to look at several factors. It's not necessarily a scary or stressful situation or task at hand. And what we're going to do today is we're going to look at several factors, and we're kind of going to simplify it to make the process a little bit easier. You want to look at certain factors like the person's religion, the person's location, where they live, what you think their parenting style is, for example. So it's a number of factors that we're looking at, and I think what we should do is just jump right into several questions that I always get from clients, and I've gotten a few from you guys, and I think that'll help clarify who this individual should be that should be selected. So the first thing is, should you select one or more individuals to act together as co-guardians? This could be either a couple acting together, or it could be, two individuals in your family that you want to make sure take care of your children together. So there's a couple of things that I always tell clients. When, for example, let's say you want to appoint your brother as guardian and your brother's wife as co-guardian. Then I always ask the follow-up question of, if your brother were to get divorced, would you still want your sister-in-law to be guardian? And most of the time it's no, I just want whoever he's married to at the time to help him out. And once we kind of go through the question and answer session, a couple will decide to not name a sister-in-law or a brother-in-law as guardian, and they'll simply settle on naming the sibling. So for example, it'll be, okay, just my brother is fine as the guardian, and then whoever he's married to can help him, but will not be legally in charge of my children. And I think that's the best way to go. So I would always advise clients to select the person that they want and not the person's spouse just because it's the spouse. Because, people can get divorced and then they'll be in a strange situation because they'll have co-guardianship rights over this child. So if you're going to name your sister, there's no need to name your sister's husband. Unless, of course, you really, really like your sister's husband and you wouldn't care and you think that he should be the guardian even in a situation of them getting a divorce in the future, then by all means, name that person. I also wouldn't advise naming two random people to act together at the same time. It's probably not a good idea because your child's going to be going back and forth between two living situations, kind of like if you were to be in a divorced household. So I would definitely name individuals in alternate order. So, pick the one you like the best, name the other one as an alternate. So think in terms of the short term. Don't think about the future. A lot of times when you're deciding on who to pick, you're focusing on the distant future, so you're thinking of yourself in your old age, or at least you're thinking of this event happening in your life that will require this guardianship nomination to come into play to be in the future. So what I want you guys to do is think in the terms of the next 3 to 7 years of your life, and pick a person that will be there in the next 3 to 7 years of your life. So if you like your parents, and your parents are the ones that are caring for your children and, would be the best caregiver now, pick them. Don't worry about your parents not being around because, they're your parents and you always envision them passing before you. So, focus on the immediate future, and then what you'll do is you'll reevaluate the situation in 3 to 7 years. My best advice to the question of what if I change my mind would be, don't worry about it, because the selection you make is not going to be permanent. It's not set in stone. So, if you change your mind down the road in a year or 6 months, you can always change your guardianship designation. So it would be better to have something on paper today than to not have anything written down and then worry about changing it later. At least you'll have something to work with. So one of the most important details that I go over with clients is actually things that are basically practical details that they need to keep in mind. For example, you need to consider certain things when selecting a guardian that a lot of people kind of overlook. Geography is probably the most important. If your sister lives in Kentucky and you live in LA, you don't want to pick somebody that is completely out of state, because that means your kid will have to get up, pack up his belongings and pretty much move across the U.S. to a state that is unfamiliar with them, and that's going to be a lot to handle during that time of transition. It's going to be a very difficult transition. So you always want to pick people that are nearest to you geographically, and you might want to consider other factors as well, dealing with geography kind of interrelated to that. If your kid has his heart set on going to, XYZ private school that's in Los Angeles, you don't want to uproot him and have him go to, live with his grandma in New York, for example. Religion is also another factor that's important. So what you want to do is look at things that are important in your parenting style. If religion is very important to you and you're an atheist, you obviously don't want to pick a couple that's going to be the guardian, or a person that's going to be the guardian that is extremely Catholic. If you don't want your child to be brought up in that way, you need to select people that go with your flow and your beliefs, basically. Education, is another important one. You should look at, how the person you select will select your child's education in turn. Do they agree with you that, whether you like the private school system or the public school system, are they kind of on board with what you want for your children, and are they going to do what you would have done? So overall parenting style is something to look at when selecting a guardian. You need to make sure that whoever you select is essentially your replacement. Of course, you can't be replaced, but as close to being you as possible. So I think that's the most important thing to look at, is parenting style. Pick somebody that's very close to the way you would have raised your kids, as far as what you're going to teach them, and what activities you're going to put them in, what their interests are, etc. Just to make the transition easier for your child, and to make everyone's life easier in the future, should you need to. So the other factor is you need to, make sure that the child's finances are coordinated. A lot of times people will ask me, does the guardian have to be well off, or will the guardian control the child's inheritance? So what I will say in this area is that, what you have to decide is, do you want the guardian that you name to also be in charge of the child's finances? Oftentimes that person that cares for your children may not be the same person as the person that controls your child's money. It's two different roles. They could be the same person, but they don't have to be. So this question should be addressed when planning your estate. Most importantly, you should coordinate the guardianship with the financial care. Oftentimes, the person isn't the same. Some people like to have a checks and balance system, so they'll name different people. Some people don't want to make it difficult on the guardian, so they'll name the same individual to also control the finances of the child as well. But they don't have to be different people. They could be, but they don't have to be. It just depends on your dynamic with the people that you're naming and how you want things executed in the future. So, another question I get is, what if you're divorced and you and your ex-spouse disagree on who to name as a guardian? So here's a situation. Both you and your spouse will name guardians. It's ideal to have the same guardians in place because it simplifies things. However, if you do not want X to be your child's guardian once you're gone, you can very well put whoever you want, I should say. Just because your ex-spouse disagrees with you doesn't mean that, his wishes are going to prevail. What I always advise is put the people that you want to name as guardians, because your spouse is going to be the next person in charge. So if you're gone, whether you're divorced or not, the other parent is automatically going to be the guardian. Once they're gone, that's when a guardianship provision prevails. So it's pretty much going to be the last person to die is the one that decides who takes care of the kid after, that person. So you and your ex-spouse don't have to necessarily agree on who to name and who to nominate. It could be different people. If you aren't divorced, I would definitely recommend it be the same person. And then finally, the last bit of advice that I always tell clients is to definitely name alternates, because in case the person you name doesn't want to do the job or just simply cannot for whatever reason, you want to make sure that you have named alternates, whether it's 4 alternates or 2. I always recommend the more you name the better, so at least 3 to 4 alternates just in case the person that you name is either unavailable because they've passed themselves, they've passed away, or they are just simply unavailable, or they don't want to do it. They kind of reject the nomination. So that's it for this webinar for this morning. So I hope that I've covered a lot of your questions. So let's see if we have any questions from you guys, and then we'll take it from there. So it looks like we don't have any questions. So I will wrap it up. If you do have questions, feel free to email me or get in contact with me somehow. My information is on this. I'll put up a slide and it'll have the information on there. Feel free to get in touch with me and we'll chat about it. We'll kind of go over whatever is bothering you with this very, very hot topic. Thank you for joining me. It was a pleasure once again to inform you and to teach you something that you may not have known prior to this webinar. I hope that you find these webinars helpful and they give you some insight into the estate planning process. Again, my information is on the next slide. Bye, have a great day.